Senate will come to order. Those not having privilege of the floor will please vacate the chamber. Those in the gallery and those on the floor will please rise. We're led in prayer by Pastor Fred Guidi as of the Horizons Church in Lost Creek, West Virginia. Please remain standing after the prayer as the junior senator from the 17th leads us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. Pastor.
Let's pray. Father God, Lord, creator of all life, Lord, we thank you today, Lord. We thank you for this beautiful day. Lord, you have spoke the world into existence, Lord, and as such, you have created us for good works. Lord, you have anointed this body, Lord, to serve the people of West Virginia. And Lord, I just ask that you fill each person here with grace, love, mercy, wisdom, and faith. Lord, let each person, Lord, answer your calling to serve these people. Lord, we thank you for this blessing today. We thank you for every blessing seen and unseen. And it is in the name of Jesus Christ, the one and only true Son of a living God, we say amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. If the members and those on the floor in the gallery would join in recognizing our great country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading of the journal.
West Virginia Legislature, Senate Journal, March 8th, 2023. The Senate met at 11:15 a.m. Senator Blair, Mr. President, in the chair.
Senior Senator from the 6th will request unanimous consent for further reading of the journal is dispensed with and the journal be approved. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Further reading of the journal is dispensed with and the journal is approved. Introduction of guest. On behalf of the Senate, it is my pleasure to welcome our honorary pages today. Please stand to be recognized as your name is called. As guest is the senior senator from the 5th, Carolyn Stoner. As guest is the senator from Monongalia, Molly Bissett and Savannah Carpenter. As guest is the senator from Harrison, Sabbath Chapel and Zoe Clark. And guest is the junior senator from the 17th, Kimmy Oxley and Bailey Locke. Will the Senate please make them feel welcome? Further introduction, Senior Senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the Senate, it is your honor and mine to introduce our Doctor of the Day. In the rear of the chamber, we have with us Dr. Michael Amos from Canova, West Virginia. If you wouldn't mind standing, let Senate give you a warm welcome.
Senator from Greenbrier.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have two special introductions today. First, in your South Gallery, we have two county commissioners from Nicholas County, and I'll ask them to stand, Garrett Cole and Gary Roberts. Please welcome them to the chamber. Then also, a very special young man in your gallery, in the President's Gallery. He really, over the years, he's really inspired me to be a better man. It's our youngest son. He's on leave right now from the United States Military Academy at West Point. May you welcome Tristan Deeds.
Senior Senator from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President. And on behalf of the Senator from Cabell, I have a special honor. Carolyn is our page, and I first want to, before I introduce her uncle, I want to talk about her parents. Her parents are great friends of Jennifer and mine, and her mother and father were at the church where we go to, and they were the youth ministers and director, and I just can't say enough about them. If they're listening today, I want to tell them how much I appreciate them and how much they've been an influence on our whole community. But her uncle is a special friend of ours, and he also is in rural health and running the Rural Health Care Association. And if he would stand, Rich Suffin is in the gallery.
Senator from Raleigh.
Thank you, Mr. President. In your gallery, we have the Sam White family, Sam, Nina, and Emily and Ethan. If you would please stand. Sam and his family are missionaries in Costa Rica. Their parents, Sam's parents, were from Boone County, and many years ago, probably around 50 or so years ago, they went as missionaries to Costa Rica, and Sam was born there. And then he met his wife, Nina, and they are here today with us in the gallery. And I would invite the Senate to please make them feel welcome.
Senator from Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joining us in the President's Gallery, chaperoning our pages, Zoe and Sabbath, is Tina Marie Clark. If she can please stand, and the Senate please make her feel welcome.
Further introductions. Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not sure they made it yet, but there's a lot of folks in town today for Recovery Community Day at the Legislature. And we're going to do a resolution here in just a little bit for that, but hopefully they're here, they're listening. Let's give them a round of applause for what they do. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from Upshur.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, celebrating Recovery Community Day, we have a delegation of folks from Pocahontas County that are seated in the North Gallery. If they would please stand, along with their friends from the Eastern Panhandle. Thank you.
Senator from Monongalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have some parents of our pages here today. First, I'd like to introduce Savannah's mother, Melissa Fleming. If she would stand, the Senate make her welcome. She was a former Senate staffer here. In addition, we have Molly's parents from here just outside of Charleston in Cabell County, where they have lived and worked in Charleston as well. I want to welcome Bill Passett, whose day job is assisting our U.S. Senator Shelley Moore Capito, and his wife Laura, who is a lawyer with the State Department of Education. Senator from Cabell and I want to make them welcome.
Further introductions. Communications from the House.
The Clerk of the House announced the House amended the title only as it relates to committee substitute for Senate Bill 451 relating to Teachers' Retirement System and Teachers' Defined Contribution Retirement System.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 451.
Senior Senator from 17th moves the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 451. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. It was a title amendment only. I urge adoption.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 451. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed will vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 31 yeas, 0 nays, 3 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House.
The House amended and passed Senate Bill 457, removing certain activities Alcohol Beverage Control Commission licensee is prohibited to permit on private club premises.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 457.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 457. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 457 amends a single section of code to remove allowing gambling on the premises from the list of actions that constitute a violation of a private club's ABCC license. The House amendment unstrikes language concerning the operations of private resort hotels and does not affect the intent, purpose, or scope of the bill. Urge adoption.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is the Senate concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 457. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the motion adopted. The question now is on passage of the bill as amended. All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 21 yeas, 10 nays, 3 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those elected having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
The clerk of the House announced the passage by that body of committee substitute for House Bill 2905, supplementing and amending appropriations to State Board of Education, State Department of Education, Classroom Aid Program.
Message will be received and the bill will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
House Bill 2907, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Administration, Division of General Services.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Our question unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 2907, supplementing and amending appropriations to Department of Administration, Division of General Services. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 2913, supplementing and amending appropriations to the DHHR Consolidated Medical Services Fund.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 2913, supplementing and amending appropriations to the DHHR Consolidated Medical Services Fund. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2928, supplementing and amending appropriations to DHHR Division of Health.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
Committee substitute for House Bill 2928, supplementing and amending appropriations to DHHR Division of Health. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 3039, making a supplementary appropriation to Adjutant General State Militia.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 3039, making a supplementary appropriation to Adjutant General State Militia. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 3564, making a supplementary appropriation to the Division of Human Services, Energy Assistance.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 3564, making a supplementary appropriation to the Division of Human Services, Energy Assistance. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced.
House Bill 3073, supplementing and amending appropriations to Adjutant General State Militia.
Message will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with. The bill be taken up for immediate consideration and read a first time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill first time.
House Bill 3073, supplementing and amending appropriations to Adjutant General State Militia. First reading of the bill.
Bill be advanced. Communications from the executive.
I have a letter dated March 7th, 2023, addressed to the Honorable Craig Blair, President of the Senate, and the Honorable Roger Hanshaw, Speaker of the House of Delegates. Dear President Blair and Speaker Hanshaw, after submission of my recommended FY 2024 executive budget on January 11th, 2023, there are areas that require adjustment. Therefore, pursuant to Section 51, Article 6 of the Constitution of the State of West Virginia, I submit revisions to the fiscal year 2024 budget bill for the following sections. Thank you for your prompt attention to this matter. Your cooperation is always appreciated. Should you have any questions or require additional information, please call me at any time. Sincerely, Jim Justice, Governor.
Does the Senate consent to receive this message? All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the Senate consents to receiving the message. The message will be referred to the Committee on Finance.
I have a proclamation by the Governor. Whereas the Constitution of West Virginia sets forth the respective powers, duties, and responsibilities of the three separate branches of government, and whereas Article 6, Section 22 of the Constitution of the State of West Virginia provides that the current regular session of the legislature shall not exceed 60 calendar days computed from and including the second Wednesday of January 2023. And whereas pursuant to Article 6, Section 22 of the Constitution of West Virginia, the 2023 regular session of the legislature is scheduled to conclude on the 11th day of March, 2023. And whereas Article 6, Section 51 of the Constitution of West Virginia sets forth the obligations of the governor and the legislature relating to the preparation and enactment of the budget bill. And whereas subsection D, Article 6, Section 51 of the Constitution of West Virginia requires the governor to issue a proclamation extending the regular session of the legislature if the budget bill shall not have been finally acted upon by the legislature 3 days before the expiration of its regular session. And whereas the budget bill has not been finally acted upon by the legislature as of this 8th day of March, 2023. Now, therefore, I, Jim Justice, Governor of the State of West Virginia, do hereby issue this proclamation in accordance with subsection D, Article 6, Section 51 of the Constitution of West Virginia, extending the 2023 regular session of the legislature for an additional period not to exceed 1 day through and including the 12th day of March, 2023. But no matters other than the budget bill shall be considered during this extension of the regular session except for a provision for the cost thereof. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the great seal of the State of West Virginia to be affixed, done at the Capitol in the city of Charleston, State of West Virginia, on this 8th day of March in the year of our Lord, 2023, and in the 160th year of the state. Signed, Jim Justice, Governor, attested to by Mac Warner, Secretary of State.
Message will be received. Reports from standing committees.
Your Committee on the Judiciary has had under consideration engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2008 requiring local entities to enforce immigration laws and has amended same, and engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3190 amending the definition of minor and has amended same, both on second reading, having been read a first time and re-referred to the Committee on the Judiciary on March 8th, 2023. And report the same back with a recommendation that they each do pass as amended. Respectfully submitted, Charles S. Trump IV, Chair.
Report will be received. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bills be taken up for immediate consideration and read a second time.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the bill a second time.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2008 requiring local entities to enforce immigration laws. Second reading of the bill.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the bill be advanced to third with right to amend.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3190 amending the definition of minor. Second reading of the bill.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill move to third with right to amend.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Reports from select committees.
There are none.
Introduction of bills.
There are none.
Resolutions.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 24 by Senators Clements, Blair, Mr. President, Azinger, Barrett, Boley, Caputo, Chapman, Deeds, Grady, Hamilton, Hunt, Carnes, Maroney, Martin, Maynard, Nelson, Oliverio, Plymel, Queen, Roberts, Rucker, Smith, Stover, Stewart, Swope, Takubo, Tarr, Taylor, Trump, Weld, Woofle, and Woodrum, renaming Mount Olive Correctional Complex and Jail as Mike V. Coleman Maximum Security Complex.
Under the rules of the Senate, the Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and put it on its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Concurrent Resolution 24, renaming Mount Olive Correctional Complex and Jail as Mike V. Coleman Maximum Security Complex.
Is there discussion? Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Michael Coleman was a long-time employee of the West Virginia Department of Corrections. He started his work at the bottom as a corrections officer and worked his way up clear to the top to at one time he was serving as acting commissioner for the West Virginia Department of Corrections. Michael Coleman was a hard worker who dedicated his life to this field. He was one of the people that was taken hostage during the prison riots in Moundsville, and he was there and did a lot of work toward moving West Virginia toward its new facility in Mount Olive. Mr. President, the resolution asks that the Mount Olive Correction Institution be named the Michael V. Coleman Maximum Security Prison and Correction Facility. Mr. President, I urge adoption of this resolution.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. Motions. Petitions. The clerk will communicate to, on Senate Concurrent Resolution 24, the clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House. Now, motions, petitions.
There are none.
Unfinished business.
Senate Resolution 48, designating March 9th, 2023 as Recovery Community Day.
Senator from Marion.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the committee reference be dispensed with and the resolution be taken up for immediate consideration and put upon its adoption.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
Senate Resolution 48, designating March 9th, 2023 as Recovery Community Day at the Legislature.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have several folks here in the Capitol today advocating for a very, very good cause. And some of the numbers in the resolution are just kind of spine-chilling. In West Virginia, we have the highest number of opioid-related deaths per capita in the country. And as many as 40,000 people nationally, including 4,000 youth, seek treatment for illegal drug use and fail to receive it in any given year. And at least one student in every middle school and high school classroom from 2015 to 2018 needed treatment for substance abuse. And I know that there is not one person in this body that drug abuse has not affected their family in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it's through peer pressure with our kids. Sometimes it's just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. And sometimes, Mr. President, it's adults that you never expect to see this kind of problem in. And I say that because, as you know, I've represented workers for a long time in my life, and sometimes one of them would get caught up and fail a drug test. And you never thought anything in the world that this could ever happen to a 50, 60, 65-year-old worker. And, you know, they would get fired, and, you know, we would have to try to figure out if the company would give them a second chance, if we can get them into rehab, because we certainly didn't want to throw their lives away and make their families suffer. But I would always ask a lot of times, I would say, what happened here? How did you get, how did this happen to you? You know, I've known you my whole life, or I've known you to be a good worker, and all of a sudden, and sometimes it was because they was injured at work and was overprescribed opioids. And before they knew it, before anyone knew it, they were addicted. And when they couldn't get them anymore from the doctor, they would start looking in their parents' and grandparents' and uncles' medicine cabinets and finding them. And then when that source ran out, guess what? You had 65-year-old people, 60-year-old people going to the street buying that type of substance. It's really sad. It's a sad, sad state of affair. And I know we all know what the problem is, but by God, it's just hard to find a solution. But we got to continue working toward a solution. We got to continue to bring light to a problem that affects every West Virginian. And we got to make sure that we know in our hearts, Mr. President, that we do everything we can to save these folks from this horrible, horrible addiction. I'd encourage a yes vote on the amendment, on the resolution. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question is on adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted.
House Concurrent Resolution 15, requesting that the Joint Committee on Government and Finance send official correspondence to West Virginia's federal delegation stating West Virginia veterans' concerns and objections to the two TRICARE for Life proposals.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House. Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendments to these resolutions in lieu of having them read, and that all the amendments be considered as one.
Senator from Wetzel requests unanimous consent to consider House Concurrent Resolution 33. Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 33, naming the Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell M. Mickle Memorial Bridge.
Are there amendments to the resolution?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure moved to amend the resolution on page 3.
Senator from Wetzel.
President, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read. Concurrent Resolution 33, the amendment simply adds a branch of service to the honoree to the name of the bridge. I request its adoption.
Got a little bit ahead of me. Senator from Wetzel requests unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read and all the amendments be considered as one. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Wetzel.
House Concurrent Resolution, the committee amendment simply adds a branch of service to the honoree to the name of the bridge.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption amendment offered by the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the resolution?
No, sir.
The question now is on adoption of the resolution as amended. Is there discussion? If not, the question is on adoption of the resolution as amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action to the Senate to the House. Senator from Wetzel.
I think we're doing. Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to consider House Concurrent Resolution 51.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 51, naming the U.S. Army Specialist First Class Samuel Evans Miller Memorial Bridge.
Question is on adoption of the resolution. Is there discussion? Senator from Wetzel? Okay. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the resolution. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House. Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to consider House Concurrent Resolution 61.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. The clerk will read the resolution.
House Concurrent Resolution 61, naming the U.S. Army Sergeant John Etzel Edens Memorial Road.
Are there amendments to the resolution?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure moved to amend the resolution.
Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having them read, and that all the amendments be considered as one.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee strike and insert amendment changes the infrastructure being named from a stretch of Poca Fork Road to a bridge on County Route 37 and makes additional technical corrections to address Sergeant Edens with his military branch and rank. Ask for adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the resolution?
No, sir.
The question now is on adoption of the resolution as amended. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the resolution as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the resolution adopted. The clerk will communicate the actions of the Senate to the House. Bills on third reading.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2004, prevent the use of payment card processing systems for surveillance of Second Amendment activity and discriminatory conduct. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, pursuant to Rule 43 of the Rules of the Senate, I request a ruling of the chair on the question of whether I should be excused from voting on this measure or required to vote. The bill before us addresses financial institutions in some fashion, and I hereby disclose that I serve as a director of a small community bank in the Eastern Panhandle.
It's opinion, Chair, that you're a member of a class and you'll be required to vote. Junior Senator from the 17th.
Ditto.
Ditto.
Same request, Mr. President.
Same answer. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2004 comes, of course, from the House, but it is the Treasurer's bill, and it is a bill. It amends a single section in Chapter 31A, Article 2A, that's Section 4, and then it creates a whole new article in the code. The article would be designated as Article 2B, and it goes in Chapter 31A. It has 10 new sections, and the new article is designated as the Second Amendment Financial Privacy Act. And so let me go through the provisions of that with the members. The act is in response to Visa, MasterCard, and American Express adopting a unique merchant category code for firearms and ammunition retailers. It's called a firearms code. And after 28 members of Congress sent public letters to the networks pressuring them to adopt the new firearms code. These are for credit card purchases of firearms. The legislation prohibits the misuse of payment card processing systems to surveil, track, or report firearms and firearm-related purchases in West Virginia. The legislation defines a protected financial information as a customer's payment card transactional records that are based on the assignment of a firearms code, and prohibits any financial institution involved in facilitating or processing payments, credit card payment transactions, from disclosing customers' protected financial information unless the disclosure is first expressly permitted by law and the information is not disclosed based upon the assignment of a firearms code. 2, made pursuant to a valid warrant issued in a criminal investigation, subpoena, or in the customer's written authorization. Or 3, only stating that the financial institution does not possess the information. Of note, a financial institution may not require a customer to provide written authorization for disclosure of protected financial information as a condition of doing business with the financial institution. The legislation prohibits a financial institution from utilizing a firearms code to engage in discriminatory conduct, such as declining a lawful payment card transaction based on the assignment of a firearms code, limiting or declining to do business with a customer or potential customer based on the assignment of a firearms code to previous lawful transactions of the customer, or charging a higher transaction or exchange fee to a merchant compared to the fee charged for similarly situated merchants based upon the assignment of a firearms code. Finally taking any action against a customer or a merchant to suppress a lawful commerce involving firearms or ammunition. With respect to enforcement, the legislature creates a civil action for compensatory damages against a financial institution or governmental entity that violates the act. A successful plaintiff can obtain injunctive relief and reasonable attorney's fees. Prior to filing a civil action, an aggrieved party must give a financial institution an opportunity to cure a violation, incorporating the by reference the right to cure provisions that we put a couple years ago in the West Virginia Consumer Credit Protection Act. Finally, the legislation authorizes the Attorney General to conduct investigations and enforce the requirements of the Act, and that can involve injunctive relief in the court. The legislation also authorizes the Commissioner of Banking to administer requirements of the article and permits the state treasurer to disqualify an offending financial institution from the competitive bidding process or from any other official selection process. So that would be the Treasurer's authority to say, if you're not going to comply with our law, you're not going to do business with the state. The Judiciary Committee strike and insert amendment to the bill we talked about yesterday provides the financial institutions with the right to cure a violation and authorizes this injunctive relief. Mr. President, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge the passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of this bill. Just a few minutes ago, actually about 43 minutes ago by my phone, there's an article on Bloomberg Law. It's BloombergLaw.com. The title of the article is Visa, MasterCard Pause Work on Code Aimed at Gun Purchases. It says the plan that they were doing would track transactions at firearms ammunition stores. And the payment giants have said the code was unlikely to have much impact. We know that's not the truth. The fact is it would have significant impact on the freedom of people across this country, especially the people here in West Virginia, if we didn't have this law that we're working on right now. I want to commend the chairman on Judiciary and the committee's work on this. As we all know, that Second Amendment is the amendment that protects all of our other rights. And since they can't get at us through the legislation stuff federally, what are they doing? They're using the dollar to try to attack the rights of our West Virginia citizens. They've tried to do it through ESG measures, and for what they learned on ESG measures, now they're coming after guns the same way. This law is a great step to protecting that. Thank you.
Further discussion? If not, question for Senate, this how the bill pass. All those in favor vote yea, those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action to send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2016 relating to confidential child care records. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Marshall.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, the purpose of this bill is to permit a child placing agency or a residential child care and treatment facility to exchange otherwise confidential information when they are making referrals or providing services on behalf of the child. The bill further requires that a child placing agency, when completing an adoption on behalf of DHHR, has access to secure records from vital statistics and other pertinent record holders. The department must provide child placing agencies with electronic access to information required to perform an adoption whenever such information is needed. The bill also requires that court notices be sent to a child placing agency as an interested party in an adoption case. Mr. President, I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Committee on Health and Human Resources move to amend the title of the bill.
The question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the actions to the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2024, the budget bill.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that further consideration of the bill be deferred until the conclusion of bills on today's first reading calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2026, authorizing municipalities with police or firefighter employees and PERS to elect to become participating employer in municipal police officer and firefighter retirement system for a limited time. The third reading of the bill. The bill is advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill over one day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2218, Distracted Driving Act, third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. The House Bill 2218, the Distracted Driving Act, is now the strike and insert amendment I explained in detail on the floor yesterday. I will, because we went through it in full yesterday, all of its provisions, I will spare the members repeating that, and I will say one sentence: this bill expands pretty dramatically what you're prohibited from doing with an electronic device, a cell phone, while you're in your car driving. It creates new penalties, there are new offenses. Be happy to try to answer questions. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 25 yeas, 7 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than the majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure move to amend the title.
Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to withdraw the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee title amendment.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered. Clerk has another title amendment.
Committee on the Judiciary move to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action to send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2346, declaring a shortage of qualified bus operators and allowing retired bus operators to accept employment. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill allows the employment of certain retired bus drivers as substitutes beyond the post-retirement limit set by the Consolidated Public Retirement Board. A person receiving retirement benefits under the teacher's retirement system or who is entitled to retirement benefits during the fiscal year in which that person retired can accept employment as a critical needs substitute bus operator for an unlimited number of days each fiscal year without affecting the monthly retirement benefit to which the retirant is otherwise entitled under the following conditions. The county board must adopt a policy to address a critical need and shortage for substitute bus operators. The county superintendent submits the policy to the state board for approval and must annually renew the policy. The policy sets forth the critical need for a shortage of substitute bus drivers, and the policy provides for the employment of retired bus operators as critical needs substitute bus operators during the school year on an expanded basis in areas of critical need and shortage for substitute bus operators. The policy provides that a retired bus operator can be employed as a substitute in an area of critical need and shortage for substitute operators on an expanded basis only when no other qualified bus operator who is not retired is available. After verification of compliance with the section, the State Board is required to submit to the Consolidated Public Retirement Board. It expires on June 30th, 2028. And one last important note, Mr. President, I'd like to add is this originally, 3 sessions ago, I saw a fiscal note of $999,999,999, and it is now at 0. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. President. I urge passage.
The question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill. Excuse me. I declare the bill passed. Senior Senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the bill be made effective July 1, 2023, and request unanimous consent that the roll call used on passage of the bill be used to make it so effective.
Senior Senator from the 17th moves that the bill be made effective for passage and request unanimous July 1 of 2023. And request unanimous consent that the roll call used on the passage of the bill be used to make it so effective. Is there objection? Chair hears none. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than 2/3 of those elected to the Senate having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill effective July the 1st, 2023. The clerk will communicate the action Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2621 relating generally to bail bondsmen. Third reading of the bill. The bill is advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Banking and Insurance moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Senator from Wood.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Wood.
This amendment makes technical corrections. It delays a sunset date for the use of real estate as a direct security by new bail bondsmen. The amendment also does away with the new continuing education requirement, and it limits new testing to initial license applicants. I urge adoption of the amendment.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on Banking and Insurance. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Wood.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill modifies one section in the Insurance Code 33-1-10 and 2 sections, sections 1 and 8 in Chapter 51, Article 10, covering professional bondsmen in criminal cases. The bill specifies the types of approved securities the insurance commissioner must accept from bail bondsmen, such as cash, irrevocable letter of credit, bond issued by an insurance company or qualified power of attorney, issued by an insurer. It ends the practice of bondsmen of using real estate as a direct security after July 1, 2024, a practice with which the insurance commissioner expressed concern. The bill also requires the insurance commissioner to formulate testing requirements for all initial license applicants. Mr. President, I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 30 yeas, 2 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Committee on Banking and Insurance move to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2814 to create a hydrogen power task force. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Tucker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finally, a bill we can all get excited about that hasn't been watered down and has a positive aspect to it. This bill creates an article known as the Hydrogen Power Task Force Act. The bill establishes a task force to study hydrogen energy in the West Virginia economy. The study will include a review of regulations and legislation needed to guide development of hydrogen energy, an examination on how the state can take advantage of incentives created by the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Job Act, recommendations for workforce incentives to prepare the state workforce for hydrogen fuel related jobs, examination of the source of potential hydrogen, including coal, oil, natural gas, hydro, wind, solar, and nuclear, recommendations for funding and tax preference for hydrogen fuel facilities, recommendations regarding funding for hydrogen energy program and infrastructure, and recommendations for potential in-use of hydrogen fuel energy. The task force will consist of the following 9 members appointed by the governor, represented from a regulated electric utility company, representative from fossil fuel industry, representative from the manufacturing industry with experience in hydrogen technology, representative from the West Virginia DEP, representative from the environmental organizations who advocate for renewable energy, chairperson of the Public Service Commission, the Secretary of the Department of Economic Development or designee, Secretary of Commerce or designee, and a representative from higher education. It's pretty simple. It's just a task force put together to basically explore hydrogen energy. So we'll take any questions, but I urge passage.
The question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action to the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2821 relating to taxation of gambling and lottery winnings. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Sorry, Mr. President, I was reading. The purpose of this bill is to grant, purpose of this bill is to grant a taxpayer a decreasing modification for gaming and gambling losses as an itemized deduction against a taxpayer's federally adjusted gross income. This would begin with tax years after January 1, 2020. A taxpayer is given the option to amend his or her tax returns for tax years 2020, 2021, and 2022. The amount of the decreasing modification may not exceed the amount of the gaming winnings for that year. Additionally, the decreasing modification may not include any cost or expenses incurred in gaming activity. There are 2 exclusions. These include gaming and gambling losses that have been applied as a deduction in determining the taxpayer's federal adjusted gross income, and gaming and gambling losses incurred in any unlawful gambling activity. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? This so the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 23 yeas, 9 yeas, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action to send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2865 to clarify that the PSC may enter an order requiring corrective measures up to and including an acquisition of a distressed or failing utility. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Summers.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2865 details the specific procedures that the Public Service Commission must follow before declaring that a utility is distressed or failing. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? So the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present and voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on Government Organization moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. Ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action to send it to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 2875, clarifying that circuit court judges have the authority to waive the requirement that a party pass a home study performed by the DHHR. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2875 is the simplest and easiest bill we're going to have all session. It amends a single section of the state code. And what it says simply is this: in a circumstance where a grandparent is adopting a grandchild, the circuit judge has the authority to waive the home study by the DHHR that would otherwise be required. Mr. President, I'm happy to try to answer any questions. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? This so the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action to send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2890, modifying student discipline. Third reading of the bill. The bill is advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Education moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Mason.
Thank you. This amendment restricts application of certain school discipline provisions to only grades 6 through 12 and excludes application in elementary schools. It replaces the disruptive to the classroom environment category of behavior that allows exclusion with behavior that obstructs the teaching or learning process of others in the classroom. It removes authority for a bus driver to exclude a student from his or her school bus based on that behavior. For certain offenses, it allows rather than requires the student be excluded from the classroom. It clarifies that the exclusion only applies to the classroom from which the student was excluded. It requires the principal to communicate with the teacher within 24 hours about that exclusion, and it adds the option of in-school suspension when a student is excluded 3 times in a month. It removes a statement that the removal counts as an in-school suspension. It removes authority of the principal to remove a student if the behavior of the student is considered to be a personality clash. It requires the county board to include in its school discipline policies an appeal procedure whereby a teacher can appeal to the county superintendent if a school's principal refuses to allow the exclusion of a student from the classroom. Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions. I urge adoption.
The clerk has an amendment to the amendment.
Senator Grady moved to amend the Education Amendment on page 1.
Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the amendments in lieu of having them read, and that all amendments be considered as one.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Mason.
Thank you, sir. This amendment to the Education Committee amendment removes language that restricts application of existing discipline provisions to only grades 6 through 12 and excludes application to elementary schools. The restriction to grades 6 through 12 and exclusion of elementary schools would only apply to certain new discipline provisions. The amendment also reinstates language that would allow a student to be removed from a school bus in certain instances. I'm happy to answer any questions. Mr. President, I urge adoption.
Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment to the amendment offered by the Senator from Mason. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Is there further discussion on the amendment as amended? If not, the question before the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on Education as amended. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've described the bill pretty much in the amendments, but to add a few more things, it adds behaving in a manner that obstructs the teaching or learning process of others in the classroom to the behaviors that allows the exclusion of a student from the classroom based on the things that I mentioned in the amendment. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. President. I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
The Committee on Education moved to amend the title.
Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to withdraw the committee title amendment.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Clerk has another title amendment.
Senator Grady moved to amend the title of the bill.
The question is, the question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor would say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will now communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 2900 relating to the Deputy Sheriff Retirement System.
Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over 1 day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed House Bill 2955 relating to the establishment and operation of regional water, wastewater, and stormwater authorities. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Wetzel.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill amends various sections and adds a new section in Chapter 16 on Public Health, Article 13D, the Regional Water and Wastewater Authority Act. Article 13D currently enables municipalities, public service districts, and others to cooperate with one another to establish various quasi-governmental public corporations such as regional water authorities and regional wastewater authorities, as well as regional water and wastewater authority. This bill enables collaboration with regard to the management of stormwater. The bill allows regional stormwater authorities to operate in combination with water and wastewater authorities. The majority of changes to existing law involve the insertion of language ensuring that all provisions applying to water and wastewater also apply to stormwater. The bill provides timetables for the Public Service Commission's review of documents and approval of contracts and rate increases. The bill sets forth some membership requirements for the governing body of the authority. It provides the authority with the right to acquire stormwater-related infrastructure. It also requires that authority maintain a working capital reserve. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action to the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3035 relating generally to high-quality education programs and school operations. Third reading of the bill. The bill is advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Education moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to withdraw the Education Committee amendment.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Are there further amendments to the bill?
Committee on Finance moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I request unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Mason.
Thank you, sir. This amendment would replace the House of Delegates' method of promoting grade-level proficiency in English language arts and mathematics by grade 3 with the Third Grade Success Act that was part of Senate Bill 274, which has already passed the Senate earlier this session. It would also remove provisions relating to the Grow Your Own program, which is a 3-year pilot program where applicant county boards and public charter schools offer a pathway to facilitate a career path for candidates to pursue a career in education. The amendment also adds in a modified version of House Bill 3293, which imposes requirements on the state board and local education agencies for addressing learning disabilities, including dyslexia and dyscalculia. Examples of the requirements imposed on the state board include developing a list of screeners, early assessments, and professional development. Also, that develops informational materials related to dyslexia for parents. And examples of the requirements imposed on the local education agencies include providing reading intervention to students who exhibit academic risks in future reading performance, including indicators of dyslexia, and conducting comprehensive assessments to determine eligibility for special education when a child doesn't respond to intervention or when a child is suspected to be dyslexic. I'm happy to answer any questions. I urge adoption.
Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on Finance. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Mason.
Mr. President, this bill includes the provisions of the Third Grade Success Act, part of Senate Bill 274 that we passed earlier this session, and it also has a modified version of House Bill 3293, both of which I just explained in the Finance Committee amendment. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. President. I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on Education moved to amend the title.
Question is on adoption of the title. She's going to withdraw. Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request the unanimous consent to withdraw the Education Committee title amendment.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Does the clerk have another title amendment?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Finance moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3036, increasing the number of districts and the limit on approved costs under the Build West Virginia Act. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. The bill would increase the limit on the number of certified Build West Virginia districts that may be certified by the Secretaries of the Departments of Economic Development, Commerce, and Tourism in this state. The current law sets the limit at 3. This bill would remove any cap, leaving the number of districts to the discretion of the 3 secretaries. This bill also increases the limit on the aggregate sum of approved costs for all approved Build West Virginia projects for any fiscal year from $40 million to $150 million. Mr. President, I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those that vote opposed will vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine, ascertain the results on this question. 31 yeas, 1 nay, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3077, relating to making the use of the multi-state real-time tracking system permanent.
Senior Senator from 17.
Mr. President, I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over 1 day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3084, relating to revising provisions related to public charter schools.
Senior Senator from 17.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over 1 day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none, so ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3092, relating to in-state food service permit reciprocity. Third reading of the bill.
Senator from Summers.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 3092 establishes interstate reciprocity for mobile food establishments. A mobile food establishment who has valid food permit in his or her county of residence is entitled to have a permit issued by the local county health department in another county without an additional fee being charged. The county issuing a permit by reciprocation may, however, place additional conditions on the permit to ensure compliance with its own standards for this type of permit. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close machine, ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed House Bill 3156, raising the compensation rates of panel attorneys. Third reading of the bill. The bill is advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Finance moved to amend the bill on page 6, section 13A.
Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Mr. President, this bill easy for me to say, this bill deals with a number of increases in hourly rates for court-appointed counsel and investigators. To make the bill revenue neutral, the Committee on Finance removed a provision that provided for increase to the investigative services hourly rate of pay from $30 to $40. Mr. President, I urge adoption of the bill.
Is there discussion? If not, question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on Finance. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
The question now is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill increases the amount of compensation that a panel attorney can claim in an eligible proceeding from a maximum of $3,000 to a maximum of $4,500, unless for good cause shown the amount shall be higher. Additionally, it increases the amount of expenses that a panel attorney can claim in an eligible proceeding from a maximum of $1,500 to a maximum of $2,500, unless for good cause shown the amount shall be higher. Finally, the bill creates a new section providing for appointing counsel to represent indigent persons in subsequent expungement proceedings who have had their cases dismissed. The maximum amount of compensation in these proceedings shall be $1,000 unless for good cause shown the amount shall be higher. The maximum amount of reimbursable expenses in these proceedings shall be $500 unless for good cause shown the amount shall be higher. Mr. President, this one was a bit complicated when it came over to finance because of all the language I just talked about going higher. So we requested a fiscal note to see where the money was actually coming from on this bill. And really the only place that added expense in this process as it currently exists was what we just fixed with the previous amendment. Because this actually will save time in the court. So, Mr. President, I urge adoption of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question for Senator, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. Clerk has a title amendment.
Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the title.
Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the Judiciary Committee amended title be withdrawn.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. The clerk has another title amendment.
Committee on Finance moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. Clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3168, ensuring investment in West Virginia tourism is competitive with other states and accessible long-term. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill involves tourism development projects and expansion projects. Its primary purpose is to increase the amount of time which a company involved in a tourism development project to realize the sales tax credit associated with the project. Now, the tax credit, which is known by the tax division in the year of the project completion, must be spread over 10 years and is forfeited after 13. This bill would increase that time period to 10 years with the ability to add an additional 15 years if necessary. The fiscal impact is considered negligible since the tax credit is already allowed and is accounted for by the tax division in the year of the project completion. Also, the sales tax associated with the project would not be available, but for the project, the bill is considered revenue neutral. Mr. President, I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk to prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3189, the PFAS Protection Act, third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Summers.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 3189 requires the DEP to undertake a series of investigative actions regarding PFAS, which is a class of synthetic chemicals used to make a variety of products. The overarching goal of those actions and the bill is to find the sources of PFAS in public drinking water and wastewater systems and remediate them at the source, thereby minimizing the cost of those systems and ultimately to the public for treating them. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has a title amendment.
Committee on Government Organization moved to amend the title of the bill.
Question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3191 relating to certain facilities operated by the state government to obtain a license.
Senior Senator from 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the bill lie over 1 day while retaining its place on the calendar.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3224, adding West Virginia Junior College to the list of eligible institutions that accept Promise Scholarship recipients. Third reading of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Senior Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll be brief. This bill adds West Virginia Junior College to the list of eligible institutions that may accept the Promise Scholarship recipients. Mr. President, I'm happy to answer any questions. I urge passage.
Was brief. Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Brooke.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, wanted to express my support for the bill. We all know here in the state of West Virginia that we do have a nursing shortage. We've talked about it many times, predominantly post-COVID. I think this is one bill that's actually going to help alleviate that a lot. You know, West Virginia Junior College, they have 3 campuses around the state, and one of the biggest programs that they have is their registered nurse program, training nurses at more than 10 locations around the state. They've got an average of 400 students that they do so, and so I think that this legislation is going to help them build their student enrollment and will help West Virginians who want to become a nurse do so, and help us with one of our bigger healthcare crises that we have in the state, which is our nursing shortage. So I urge passage of the bill. Thank you.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed vote nay. The clerk to prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk close the machine. Ascertain the results on this question. 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3271 relating to increasing monitoring of special education classrooms. Third reading of the bill.
You guys are making it tough on me. Question is on passage of the bill. Senator from Mason.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay, the purpose of this bill is to expand the presence of audio and video equipment in certain classrooms. The bill would require that in a self-contained classroom that audio recording devices be placed in the restrooms. Notice of the audio recording device is required to be posted on the door of each restroom facility that has such a device. There's a provision that provides a parent to opt out of monitoring of their child. The audio file is required to be maintained for a period of 3 months, exactly as with other video recordings. Additionally, the school principal, other school administration designee, or county designee is required to review no less than 15 minutes of the recording every 90 days. The provisions of this bill are effective August 1st, 2023. A school is able to request an extension of this date from the Board of Education. And based on our information, this would affect about 421 restrooms in schools across the state. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. President. I urge passage.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? If not, question for the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea. Those opposed to vote nay. The clerk shall prepare the machine. Senator from Wetzel. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the results. On this question, 32 yeas, 0 nays, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk will communicate the action and send it to the House.
Engrossed committee substitute for House Bill 3332, creating judicial circuits and assigning the number of circuit judges in each circuit to be elected in the 2024 election. Third reading of the bill. The bill is advanced to third reading with the right to amend.
Are there amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to withdraw the Judiciary Committee amendment.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Are there further amendments to the bill?
Yes, sir. The Committee on Finance moved to amend the bill by striking out everything after the enacting clause.
Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to explain the Finance Committee amendment in lieu of having it read.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the members of this body who are familiar with the Judiciary Committee amendment, the Finance Committee amendment will look very similar to you. Everybody in the Senate has had an opportunity to see this bill in one form or another, but I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about how we got to where we are. Mr. President, under Article 8 of our state constitution, our judicial officers who are elected for 8 years of the circuit bench and 8 years of the family court bench and 4 years as magistrates, those elections are in 2024 for the succeeding terms. And under our Constitution, the legislature has the authority and opportunity in the year before those judicial elections to take a look at and reconfigure circuits. And that's what this bill does. The legislature has this authority once every 8 years, and the year before there will be judicial elections to alter the number of judges in the state and where they serve and what the circuits are drawn like. Really, we have opportunities to address magistrates every 4 years, but in preparation for this, Mr. President, the legislature asked the judiciary to help us with some analysis, and the judiciary, the administrative office of the Supreme Court itself did what we asked. They commissioned studies by the National Center for State Courts, and the studies were intended to and did analyze the need for judges in various parts of the state, to analyze how judges spend their time in doing their work, everything from different kinds of cases to travel across circuits and around and within their circuits. And the Supreme Court asked the National Center for State Courts to expedite that study for us, and they did. And it was handed off to us right at the beginning of this 2023 regular legislative session. So what we have, which is not always the case, Mr. President, but we have pretty recent census data. We got in 2021, we received the results of the 2020 census, and we got up-to-date weighted case average, study data that we used to construct this relatively small reconfiguration of circuits that we made. I'm going to go through this generally. Let me start with the magistrate courts because that's easier. This bill adds, right now, 11. The amendment adds 11 magistrates across the state. There will be an amendment for the Senate to consider to reduce that to 10. And our information is that the Wood County, the addition of magistrates in Wood County will go from 2 to 1, but that's up to the Senate. Under the amendment, there would be 3 magistrates added in Kanawha County, 2 in Wood, 2 in Monongalia, and I'll say at this moment, the bill expedites Monongalia's addition of 1 of those magistrates. We have language in the bill that will require that to occur. Oh my.
Kind of shocking, isn't it?
In July 1st, 2023. There are magistrates added in 1 magistrate each in Berkeley, Logan, Raleigh, and Jefferson counties. And these are all places where the study, and for any lawyers in here who practice in any of those areas, our personal experiences tell us there's need for additional magistrates. Of course, magistrates are all elected in 2024 and take their office January 1, 2025. Family court, very little change in the family court. There was 1 change in a circuit, and Braxton County, which is currently in a circuit with Lewis and Upshur, gets moved to a circuit that is Pocahontas and, let me find it, and Webster, Pocahontas and Webster. And that was the only change in the circuits for the family court. There's only one additional judge added for the family court, and that's in the circuit that includes Berkeley and Jefferson counties. And unsurprising, of course, because of the pretty extraordinary population growth over there. Judges all, the new judge and family court judge in that circuit would not be appointed ahead of the election. He or she, a judge, would be elected in 2024 to begin service in January of 2025. Okay, judicial circuits for circuit judges. We did make some changes in those. Right now, Wirt County is appended to Wood in that judicial circuit. We remove Wirt from the circuit with Wood County, and Wirt gets added to the circuit that includes Doddridge, Pleasance, and Ritchie. Right now, that's a single judge circuit with 3 counties. I should mention here, let me pause before I go farther. One of the objects, I think, of both houses throughout this process was to try to reduce the number of single judge circuits, circuits where there's only one judge in the circuit. And we did a good bit of that in this amendment. The strike and insert amendment, we eliminated, I think, 5 or 6. We're down to 1. If this amendment becomes law, there will still remain one circuit in the state where there's a single judge, and I'll come to that in a bit. But if I may, I will say that, you know, an important reason for doing that is that when you have a single judge circuit, if the judge has to be disqualified for some reason, then there's no other judge in the circuit to whom the case can be handed off or assigned, and the Supreme Court has to assign a judge from an outside circuit to come into that circuit. So there's an advantage to having at least 2 judges in the circuit, just for normal, efficient operations. As it happens, you know, if a judge is disqualified in a case because he's related to a litigant, or because the judge before becoming a judge had, you know, some work or involvement in the case, those cases can't be presided upon by that judge who has a disqualifying conflict of interest. If you have a circuit with multiple judges, it can just be assigned within the circuit. It doesn't have to involve action by the Supreme Court. So, Wirt County goes from being in a circuit with Wood to the circuit with Doddridge, Pleasance, and Ritchie. And it would be impossible for one judge to have 4 circuits and hold court in 4 different counties. I said circuits, I mean counties. We add a judge to that judicial circuit. And the number of judges in Wood stays the same, but they no longer will have jurisdiction or responsibility for Wirt County. McDowell County. Currently, McDowell County has 2 circuit judges. It has for a long time, and we all know the sad truth of what's been going on in McDowell County for a very long time. You know, the population is down, I believe now, maybe to under 20,000 people. I'll defer to the distinguished senator who represents senators, which represent McDowell, and I don't mean this to be a nostalgia tour, but we'd be wrong not to remember there was a day when McDowell County had 100,000 people in it. They have 2 circuit judges now in McDowell County. It's a single county circuit. I'm sorry? All right. It doesn't need 2 judges for McDowell County. Wyoming County is a single judge circuit now. What we do in the amendment, it combines the 2 counties. Wyoming and McDowell become a single circuit. with 2 judges instead of 3 overall. It's divided into divisions so that 1 judge will come from either county. Mingo and Logan. Well, I better keep these in order. Preston County has a single judge. It's a single county, single judge circuit right now. It's got a high caseload. The judge there needs help. It's probably too much to put 2 judges in Preston County exclusively. So what this bill does is it moves Tucker to a circuit with Preston County and adds a judge. So Tucker, under current law, is with Mineral and Grant. So we take Tucker away from the circuit that includes Mineral and Grant. It goes with Preston. We add a judge. Solves problems. Solves problems in Preston County. It helps with the dockets in Mineral and Grant. Mingo and Logan. So Mingo right now is a single judge circuit, single judge, single county. Logan is a single county, 2-judge circuit. This amendment will combine them into a single circuit with 3 judges. We take no judges away in that circuit, but, and we create divisions. So under the bill, two judges will come from Logan, 1 from Mingo. And of course, in all cases, judges who are elected in circuits are elected by the entire circuit. It's the entire circuit votes for the judges, and they run in separate divisions. The Eastern Panhandle. So Morgan, Berkeley, and Jefferson now are a single judicial circuit. Right now they have 6 judges that serve and are elected across those 3 counties. This bill changes that. This bill divides Jefferson County off into and to become its own circuit. You know, there was some momentum for that 8 years ago, my first term in the Senate, but the caseload wasn't quite high enough for Jefferson County to have 2 judges then. And I remember having conversations where I said, I think it could be done if Jefferson stayed with 1 judge. That was 8 years ago. The workload was more than what you need, more than what 1 judge could handle, so we left them all conjoined. But now, Jefferson County, if this becomes law, will be carved off. It will be its own judicial circuit, and it will have 2 judges. And Morgan, Berkeley, and Jefferson, Morgan and Berkeley will remain a circuit, will be a circuit unto themselves, and they will have 5 judges. Right now, there are 6 across the 3 counties, so the addition of 1 for Jefferson actually helps Morgan and Berkeley too, as well, because right now there's a judge who splits time between Morgan and Jefferson, and it would have 5. It allows Berkeley and Morgan counties to pick up half a judge without adding a judge in either of those counties. The strike insert amendment as it comes out of the Finance Committee includes a bunch of language that addresses how elections occur. They remain nonpartisan in the divisions for the circuit judges, but we have language with some of the other circuits that say that where there are 4 counties in the circuit, you can't have both judges who are elected from or reside in the same county. We have that sort of language I think we ended up with 3 4-county circuits. 3 4-county circuits. So there's a change for the circuit court. There's language in current law that says that the Circuit Court of Kanawha County has concurrent jurisdiction with any circuit where there's only 1 judge. And as said, we've got half a dozen of those now under current law. If the bill passes, there will only be 1. And the one remaining circuit that will have only one judge is the circuit that's made up of Monroe and Summers. And so it seemed like since Kanawha County is farther away, Raleigh County has a four-judge circuit. This amendment changes that and says that Raleigh County will have concurrent jurisdiction with the circuit that includes only one judge, Monroe and Summers. The amendment, as it comes out of the House Finance Committee, includes something that was not in the Judiciary Committee amendment, and it's a runoff requirement. And so, as members will remember, the judges, circuit judges, all the judges are elected on nonpartisan ballot, and there was talk when we did that about a runoff. For circuit judges only now, if this amendment is adopted, it doesn't apply for family court judges or magistrate judges, but for circuit judges only. In a division race, if a candidate does not achieve at least 30% of the popular vote, then the top two vote getters in that division are required to run off in an election that would be held concurrently with the general election in November. And it'd be interesting to see if this becomes law. I don't know how often it will come up. I think maybe not hugely frequently, but we'll see. All right, people are saying that's good. I think, Mr. President, I think I've covered the highlights. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions. Otherwise, I urge the adoption of the Finance Committee strike and insert amendment.
The clerk has an amendment to the amendment.
Senator Trump moved to amend the Finance Amendment on page 8, Section 2, line 170, by striking out the word 6 and inserting in lieu thereof the word 5.
Senator from Oregon.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is what I mentioned at the outset. 6 becomes 5. Wood County, if this is adopted, it means Wood County gets one additional magistrate. I urge adoption of the amendment to the amendment.
Is there discussion? Senator from Cabell.
I'm sorry, Mr. President, I had to step out. Could you repeat all that?
Is there objection? Question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment to the amendment offered by the Senator from Oregon. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Is there further discussion on the amendment as amended? If not, the question for the Senate is adoption of the amendment offered by the Committee on Finance as amended. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the amendment adopted. Are there further amendments to the bill?
No, sir.
Question now is on passage of the bill. Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Briefly, what I think we've got here, and I want to compliment everybody in the Senate because I know all the senators were engaged on it, the Finance Committee chair. I think what we have crafted is a plan that will allow the judiciary to function as we want it to and hope it to over the next 8 years. I hope this gets serious consideration from our colleagues in the House of Delegates. I urge passage of the bill.
Question is on passage of the bill. Is there discussion? Senator from Monongalia. Will the senator from Morgan yield? Senator yields.
I will.
Senator, we noticed a new circuit created in the Eastern Panhandle with Morgan County and Berkeley County, and I was curious if there was any alignment there that would require the voters to elect a judge from Morgan County.
No, sir, there's not. Morgan County is small. We have 17,000 people, and we have, while we have had judges from Morgan County and have one whose family lives there now, there is no requirement that any judge in that circuit come from any particular county.
Thank you. maybe one day the people of that circuit will have the wisdom to elect the senator from Morgan as their judge.
Well, I don't know if that's a compliment or if my friend from Monongalia County is trying to get me out of the Senate. It could be interpreted either way. I'll interpret it as a compliment. Thank you.
Indeed, intended that way. Mr. President, I just want to thank our two major committee chairs for their indulgence. We have had an incredible problem in the Monongalia County Magistrate Court with limited number of magistrates and continued growth in our county. And both leaders here of our major committees and the membership as a whole has helped us in two ways. First, enabling us to have 2 additional magistrates, which is much needed in Monongalia County. And more than just 2 additional magistrates, this bill allows for one of those magistrates to begin work on July 1st of this year. And that would be done based on an appointment by the chief judge. And our Supreme Court has agreed to absorb the cost of that magistrate within their budget, not requiring us to add additional dollars to fiscal year 24 budget. So I want to thank the members for their support. I hope that none of you ever need to be in front of a magistrate in Monongalia County, but if you do, we will have 6 within the next 18 months. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further discussion? If not, the question before the Senate is, shall the bill pass? All those in favor vote yea, those opposed vote nay. The clerk should prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Has every member voted? If so, the clerk closes the machine and ascertains the results. On this question, 31 yeas, 1 nay, 2 absent, not voting. More than a majority of those present voting having voted in the affirmative, I declare the bill passed. The clerk has the title amendment.
Committee on the Judiciary moved to amend the title.
Senator from Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent that the title amendment offered by the Judiciary Committee be withdrawn.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. Clerk has another title amendment.
Committee on Finance moved to amend the title.
Senior Senator from the 4th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I request unanimous consent to withdraw the title amendment.
Is there objection? Chair hears none. So ordered. The clerk has another title amendment.
Senator Trump moved to amend the title of the bill.
The question is on adoption of the title amendment. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. I declare the title amendment adopted. The clerk will communicate the action of the Senate to the House. Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Subject to announcements, I move the Senate stand in recess until 1:30 p.m.
Are there announcements? Senior Senator from the 17th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Rules Committee will meet at 1:20 p.m. in the Senate President Conference Room.
Further announcements? If not, the Senator from Marion.
Thank you, Mr. President. We got a group of folks coming in from for Recovery Day for a photo. If any senators would like to stick around for that. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further announcements? The motion before us is the Senate stand in recess till 1:30 p.m. today. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The Senate's in recess till 1:30 p.m. today.
Highlight the fact that this rule is going through at this point and make a request, if possible, for us to address that in a future session so that we could have more stable revenues for our local communities and so that our constituents aren't hit with these wildly fluctuating tax bills. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman with 12, Dr. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the gentleman's point, we had this tax bill before us twice. We had a tax department that did not want to cooperate on what the Supreme Court had came down to say true and accurate value on each piece of property. We were in a classification system before. So each well has been placed on its own merits as far as value is concerned. And as the gentleman alluded to earlier, the reasons that you have fluctuations in values
is not based on production, but based on the market conditions of the price of gas and oil and the other substances. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there other debate on the bill? If not, the question again is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There were 76 ayes, 15 nays, and 9 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 345, authorizing Department of Revenue to promulgate legislative rules.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill take effect from its passage.
The question is on the gentleman's motion that the bill take effect from passage. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 76 ayes, 14 nays, and 10 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Senate Bill 465, increasing limit on monies placed in county's rainy day fund.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman 9th, I got Barnhart to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 465 would increase the amount of money a county commission may appropriate to its financial stabilization fund from any surplus in their general fund at the end of each fiscal year. Under current law, the cap on the amount of money in the fund is 30% of the county's most recent general fund budget. The bill before us today would increase that cap to 50%. Mr. Speaker, that's a summarization of the bill, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 92 ayes, 0 nays, and 8 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 465, increasing limit on monies placed in county's rainy day fund.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 478, relating to Jumpstart Savings Program.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman 97th, I got Hardy to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see. Okay. The purpose of the bill would amend the current law relating to the administration and tax treatment of contributions to and distributions from Jumpstart Savings Account, all effective retrospectively of January 1, 2023. The Jumpstart Savings Program in code in 2021 is administered by the state treasurers, a savings and investment program to assist our citizens who wish to embark on a new trade or establish a new business within the state. West Virginia subsection 18-30-2, the program through tax-deductible contributions to a special state-administered savings account made by the account's owners who is being educated or trained in a trade or vocation, as well as by the owner's employer. Sets aside money to help the owner to cover the cost of pursuing a career in skilled trades and vocations at the end of his or her education or training. That is the bill, Mr. Speaker, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 92 ayes, 0 nays, and 8 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 478, relating to Jumpstart Savings Program.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from the 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill take effect from its passage.
Questions on the motion that the bill take effect from passage. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 92 ayes, 0 nays, and 8 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective for passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Senate Bill 488, aligning state and federal accreditation rules.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman number 38 to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill requires that the HEPC, Community and Technical College Council, and the governing boards of the 3 exempted schools, WVU, Marshall, and the Osteopathic School, regularly update their rules regarding accreditation to conform with changes by and to take advantage of any new flexibilities and data sources that are made available by the United States Department of Education and by the United States Congress. And it also allows them to promulgate rules that permit institutions to choose to pursue institutional accreditation with any of the accreditors recognized by the United States Department of Education by December 31st of this year. Mr. Speaker, that's essentially the bill, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There were 91 ayes, 1 nay, and 8 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 488, aligning state and federal accreditation rules.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Ellington moves to amend the title.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of the title amendment, please say aye. Those opposed, please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 543, authorizing rulemaking changes to terms, procedures, and reporting duties in higher education.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman number 38 to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill makes changes to the higher education rules process to make it more consistent with the general rulemaking protocols. The bill changes the term of board to agency and expands that term to include not only HEPC but also the CTCC and the SBA. The bill adds a section of the code setting forth procedures for proposed amendments and repeals of any existing rule. The bill also adds legislative exempt rules to the provisions that relate to procedural and interpretive rules and provides that the agency may repeal these rules by filing a notice of repeal with the Secretary of State. The bill amends the provisions for a public comment period and the proposal of legislative rules. It also includes the State Board of Education in the requirement that LOCIA make a continuing investigation of the practices, policies, and procedures of the agency. The bill amends submission of legislative rules by replacing paper copy submission with electronic copies and setting forth the contents to be included in the electronic submission. The bill also amends provisions regarding LOCIA's review of a proposed legislative rule, submission of rules to the legislature, the procedure for emergency legislative rules and amendments thereto, and also sunset provisions. Mr. Speaker, that's essentially the bill. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? Gentleman from the 8th, your vote's not registered. Clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 92 ayes, 0 nays, and 8 members absent. Majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 543, authorizing rulemaking changes to terms, procedures, and reporting duties in higher education.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Ellington moves to amend the title.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from the 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill take effect from its passage.
The question is on the motion that the bill take effect from passage. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 95 ayes, 0 nays, and 5 members absent. 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Senate Bill 559 relating to spousal privilege.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman from the 55th, Dr. Capito, to explain the bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Senate Bill 559, as amended, clarifies that the spousal privilege extends only to those that are part of a valid marriage. It does not apply in the cases of forgery, uttering, conspiracy, certain sexual offenses, and crimes against the child. It also would not apply where the victim is incompetent due to mental disease, defect, or disability. Mr. Speaker, I urge passage of the bill.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 95 ayes, 0 nays, and 5 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 559 relating to spousal privilege.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Capito moves to amend the title.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 613 relating generally to certificates of need.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, lady from the 73rd, Douglas Summers, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill exempts health care services provided in hospitals and birthing centers from certificate of need. The bill clarifies an exemption allowing a private office practice owned and operated by health professionals with at least 7 office practice locations may acquire and utilize 1 MRI scanner, regardless of the costs associated with the proposal. To qualify for that exemption, 75% of the MRI scans are to be for patients of the private office practice. Language is also added to clarify that a hospital is deemed a trauma center if it receives a child suffering from birth complications. This will ensure that the hospital falls under the Medicaid cap. I urge adoption.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? Gentleman from the 54th, Douglas Pushkin's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the chair yield?
Yes.
Okay. Now, one thing that this does several things, but one thing it does exempt the requirement for a certificate of need for birthing centers, correct?
Yes.
Which is a bill that we sent over, a standalone bill that did that to the Senate this year,
Yes.
correct? And that didn't run, but this one is, which is...
Yeah, they incorporated
that's
that idea into this
bill. Yeah.
due to code conflicts, right?
Yeah. But what this does, it removes a lot of the requirements, not necessarily by striking them from the certificate of need section of code, but by changing the definition of a hospital or a hospital campus, correct?
No, it doesn't change a definition. The definition wasn't in there before, so the definition is now in there so people knew. Since we are removing certificate of need for hospitals to do what they want to do on their campus, we had to define what campus was. So
Okay,
we
and
used a federal definition of campus in the statute.
Okay, which is 250 yards away from the hospital was considered. That's what, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
250 yards from the main building.
Okay, so a doctor's office that's within the 250 yards of the main building would be considered on the campus and then would be exempt from the certificate of need for certain procedures, correct?
Only if it was owned by the hospital. Only if it was owned by the people on that campus.
Okay, okay. And then we raised the, there was a cap at the value of that practice, like we raised it greatly. I'm trying to find it in here, up to, like, from like, was it 5 million up, wait, I have to find it in here.
Do you know what page? Yeah.
I'm looking for it. We raised it up to 100 million, I believe. Is that correct? From I think it's 5 million to 100 million, we raised the cap.
I think you're right, but I'd have to find it.
Yeah, I was looking, we pushed this bill off for so long, I lost track of it there for a second.
You know I haven't lost track of it.
Okay. Thank you for yielding. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Mr. Speaker.
Gentleman is recognized.
I just think that we need to be very careful when we're with a bill that is as broad as this in regards to how we manage health care in the state. Well, I agree with removing certificates of the requirements for certificates of need in some aspects. I think that, first of all, I mean, removing them for organ transplants or cardiac surgery could set a rather dangerous precedent. And I'm looking at, basically, we've been asking ourselves a question over on this side of the room for a while when we're talking about a bill is, who does it help and who does it hurt? And I think it's a good filter to run things through when we're making decisions for the whole state, is who does it help and who does it hurt? And while I think it was, last week when we were discussing a bill about teachers' pay raise for certain subjects, teachers, and a comment was made about an amendment being self-serving. I mean, look at this bill. I mean, strictly hypothetically speaking, this could be a lot more self-serving than a teacher's pay raise that we supported. When you think about what practice would be that within that 250 yards of a hospital, and hypothetically is in the process of being sold to said hospital, and now removing it from the certificate of need, it's just, I think once the books are closed on this session and then the dots are connected, we'd know of a few individuals that this would definitely help. That this bill would definitely help, and maybe that's why it's been pushed off so long, was maybe to gain influence with a certain individual that helped craft this legislation. I don't know. That's strictly hypothetical. I'm more concerned about who this bill would hurt. And when you allow these private practices to offer these types of procedures that are really what they can bill a whole lot for, and what the hospitals also bill a whole lot for. But when they can cherry pick and they can say, well, we're not going to take PEIA, we're not going to take Medicaid, we're not going to take Medicare, we're only going to take private pays, but the hospital, they have to take everybody, and rightfully so. Then you can run into a dangerous situation, and then who will it hurt? The people who need the services that can't afford it. And like, for example, I mean, here in this community, we have, a Women's and Children's Hospital. If you haven't visited the neonatal intensive care unit over there, I would strongly urge you to do so. It's a real eye-opener. It's a service that must be provided, to save the lives of infants, of mainly born prematurely in many cases. It's not a profitable venture, but they're able to keep that type of service, or a trauma center, they're able to keep that type of service open because of the way we have structured our certificate of need laws. So the items that can be the big ticket items, for lack of a better word, can't be cherry picked by these smaller offices that are now defined by being within 250 yards of the campus. And now just not under $5 million, but under $100 million. So I have real concerns about this bill and what it will do to the future of health care and the accessibility for health care in our state. So I'm less concerned with somebody it might be helping than who it's going to hurt. So I would urge a no vote.
Gentleman 64, second, Burkhammer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I'm going to rise in support of this bill. And when we look at these three areas that are being affected, birthing centers and MRI machines, and allowing hospitals to expand their campuses and services, we could probably ask the question why we need to do those things. Communities grow, communities expand, economic development comes into our communities and in our areas, and there's a need. And at times, certificate of need can kind of squelch the ability to meet those needs. And so what we're doing here is we're not helping anybody but our people. We're allowing them to get access to care. We're allowing them to get MRIs. We're allowing them to have an option in birthing centers. We're allowing them to have expanded services in the hospital that they've already been part of. But there are still needs in our communities that need to be met. There are still other communities that are expanding and growing and have hospital needs, maybe an aging hospital, maybe the need to relocate their hospital. And we shouldn't squelch those things as well, and sometimes help some communities, and other times not help the other communities. So as our state grows, as we continue to flourish with economic development, as we continue to build infrastructure and roads, let's take all of our communities into consideration and allow them to have the same quality, timely access to care that we're doing here. I urge passage.
Gentleman 22nd, Dr. Linville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would the gentlelady yield the chair?
Yes.
I'm trying to follow and understand everything about this. I think I understand the 250-yard carve-out. I'm trying to understand the MRI carve-out. So as I read this, I'm on page 12 of the bill, page 12, line 15. A private office practice owned or operated by one or more health professionals authorized or organized pursuant to Chapter 30 of this code, which has at least 7 office practice locations, may acquire and utilize one fixed site MRI regardless of the cost, so on and so forth, a few more provisos. Who would fit that definition?
One example would be MedExpress. You know, there's different offices across the state, so they could offer an MRI there, and then you wouldn't have to go to the hospital and pay sometimes 3 times the cost for an MRI.
So, and MedExpress is owned or operated by
I have no idea. I was just trying to think of something in my area that there were several offices.
Sure. How did we come to 7? Was there any testimony in committee related to that?
No, that came from the Senate, and we thought they must have decided that was enough. I don't know.
Okay. All right. That's all I had. It just seems like a bit of a carve-out for something very specific.
Okay.
So I was hoping to understand for whom that might be and who that would apply to.
I think it could apply. There's a lot of practices that have more than 7 locations in the whole state, so you could probably look those up and see who those are.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lady from the 49th, Dr. Tully's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today and urge support of this bill. We heard my friend from Kanawha mention who does it help and who does it hurt, and who I feel that it helps are people within my community. I live in Summersville, as you all well know. It's about an hour commute either to Beckley, an hour and a half to Charleston, an hour and a half to Clarksburg, or some of our patients even go to Elkins to get obstetrical care. My hospital in my community also is interested in expanding some cancer treatment services, and so that would also eliminate the travel times for patients in my area that may need cancer treatment services if those are to be implemented. I feel that this bill is very good for rural areas with some hospitals, so that it allows them to expand services within their campus from the 250 feet requirement. So 250-yard requirement. So I feel that this is a good bill. I think it was a good compromise bill, and I do think that it will end up helping patients in the Mountain State. So for those reasons, I urge passage. Thank you.
Is there other debate on the bill? If not, Chair will recognize Lady from 73rd to close debate on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that everyone brought up some really good points. And who is this going to help? This is going to help our constituents. This is going to allow them to have more access to care. It's also potentially going to lower costs because these entities are going to have to start competing against each other. So if I can offer a service at my hospital for X amount of dollars and I'm trying to draw people over, I will try to offer it at a lower cost. So I think this helps everyone, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there were 75 ayes, 20 nays, and 5 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 613, relating generally to certificates of need.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Summers moves to amend the title.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the title amendment adopted. Gentleman 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill take effect from its passage.
The question is on the gentleman's motion that the bill take effect from passage. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On this question, there were 83 ayes, 13 nays, and 4 members absent, 2/3 of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next, bill on third reading.
Senate Bill 625, requiring certain transcripts to be accepted as record of students' performance for placement in micro-school programs.
Ladies and gentlemen, this bill was advanced to third reading yesterday with an amendment pending. Clerk will please report the amendment.
The Committee on Education moves to amend the bill.
Does the gentleman wish to explain the amendment in lieu of having it read? Are there objections? No objections are heard. Gentleman number 38 to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To understand the amendment, one must understand what the bill is trying to say, too. So the bill adds micro-school programs to the list of programs whose transcripts or other credentials must be accepted by a public school as a record of a student's previous academic performance. So the committee amendment was just a leading reference to the Hope Scholarship Program that was consistent with the statutory changes that were proposed in House Bill 3408, which is still pending over on the Senate side. There are also no Hope Scholarship transcripts or kindergarten transcripts. They are homeschool, private school, or micro-school transcripts. So that's all the amendment does. I just urge passage or adoption of the amendment.
You've heard the amendment explained. The question is, shall the amendment be adopted? Is there debate on the amendment? Is there debate on the amendment? If not, those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there other amendments to the bill? If not, the bill will be advanced to third reading, and the clerk will please read the bill a third time as amended.
Senate Bill 625, requiring certain transcripts to be accepted as record of students' performance for placement in micro-school programs.
Is there objection to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? There's no objection. Gentleman 38 to explain the bill.
Pretty much as I just said with the amendment that was just adopted, it just adds to the micro-school programs or on the list of programs whose transcripts or other credentials must be accepted by the public school as a record of a student's previous academic performance. I urge passage of the bill.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, member 37, Dr. Gearhart, your vote's not registered. Clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result. On that question, there were 82 ayes, 9 nays, and 9 members absent. A majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Senate Bill 625, requiring certain transcripts to be accepted as record of students' performance for placement in micro-school programs.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Ellington moves to amend the title.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title as amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 649, authorizing Berkeley County Council to change its name to Berkeley County Commission.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, the gentleman to 68 to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The committee substitute for Senate Bill 649 adds a new section authorizing the Berkeley County Council to change its name back to the Berkeley County Commission. No other changes are made. The number of commissioners as well as the form, powers, duties, and responsibilities of the Berkeley County Council remain unchanged. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Gentleman from the 94th, Dr. Kump.
Speak on the bill.
Gentleman is recognized.
Real briefly, this is something that's real important to Berkeley County. It's been confusing for years and years and years. It's the only county that has this county commission called a council, and this will be a big help to Berkeley County.
Is there further debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 93 ayes, 0 nays, and 7 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 649, authorizing Berkeley County Council to change its name to Berkeley County Commission.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 667, requiring periodic performance audits of West Virginia Secondary Schools Athletic Commission.
Ladies and gentlemen, this bill was advanced to third reading yesterday with an amendment pending. The clerk will please report the amendment.
The Committee on Education moves to amend the bill.
Are there objections to having the amendment explained in lieu of having it read? There are no objections. Gentleman 38 to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The committee amendment only removes the reference to a court case that doesn't need to be in there. It also restructures the legislation into various subsections. That's essentially the amendment. I urge adoption of the amendment.
The question is on the amendment just explained. Is there debate on the amendment? If not, those in favor of adoption of the amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the amendment adopted. Are there other amendments to the bill? If not, the clerk will please read the bill a third time.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 667, requiring periodic performance audits of West Virginia Secondary Schools Athletic Commission.
The question now before the House is, shall the bill pass? Number 38th.
Explain the bill?
Yes, sir. Bill is recognized.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I said the committee substitute provides that the legislative auditor may at reasonable and prudent intervals conduct performance audits of the SSAC. The legislative auditor is given the power and authority to examine the revenues, expenditures, and performance of the SSAC, including the inspection of all records and accounts and the examination of personnel. The legislative auditor is required to protect the confidentiality, privacy, or security of protected information. The committee substitute also provides that the legislative auditor must complete an initial performance audit of the SSAC by December 1st of this year and deliver a report thereof to the Joint Committee on Government and Finance and to LOCIA. Mr. Speaker, that is the bill, and I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Gentleman the 11th, Dr. Fehrenbacher.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to speak to the bill.
Yes, gentleman is recognized.
We're talking about a private, nonprofit organization, the West Virginia Secondary Schools Activities Commission. This bill subjects this organization to legislative audit as though it is a state agency. The West Virginia Supreme Court has already ruled in 2008 that it is not a state agency. The state auditor's office already audits this organization annually, so this bill subjects the organization to duplicate audits by two different bodies. The bill also grants the legislative auditor the power and authority to examine the personnel of the commission. To me, this is legislative overreach, and I urge a no vote on the bill.
Gentleman from the 60th, Doug Farrell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. And in conjunction with my colleague there from Wood County, our state auditor already has auditing once a year with the SSAC. I'm not sure what we're trying to do here. What was the motivation behind this bill unless somebody had some vendetta against the SSAC? And, you know, this is a nonprofit, as he said, made up and administered from a board from principals, schoolmasters from across the state of West Virginia. So I'm not sure what we're trying to do here. We're being redundant at best, but my concern is that this is some type of a personal vendetta bill against the SSAC, so I encourage a no vote on this. This is not what we're in business to do. Thank you.
Is there other debate on the bill? Does the gentleman from 38th wish to close debate on the bill? If not, the question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on this question. There are 49 ayes, 43 nays, 8 members absent. Majority of members voting in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
Committee substitute for Senate Bill 667, requiring periodic performance audits of West Virginia Secondary Schools Athletic Commission.
Are there title amendments?
Delegate Ellington moves to amend the title.
The question is on the adoption of the title amendment. Those in favor of adoption of the title amendment will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. The chair declares the title amendment adopted. The title amended by the House will be and remain the title of the bill. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 3109, supplementing and amending appropriations to the State Board of Education, State Department of Education.
Are there objections to having this bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman from the 12th to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This supplemental appropriation bill creates new lines of appropriation in item 44, the State Board of Education, State Department of Education, for line 3A, equipment, in the amount of $1.3 million, and 37A, an allowance for extraordinary sustained growth for $281,766. This appropriation will come from the unappropriated balance of the state fund general revenue. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 83 ayes, 10 nays, and 7 members absent. The majority of members voting in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 3109, supplementing and amending appropriations to the State Board of Education, State Department of Education.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from the 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill take effect from its passage.
The question is on the gentleman's motion that the bill take effect from passage. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 85 ayes, 8 nays, and 7 members absent. 2/3 of members having voted in the affirmative. The chair declares the bill effective for passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Next bill on third reading.
House Bill 3542, expiring funds to the Department of Administration, Board of Risk and Insurance Management, Public Entity Insurance Trust Fund.
Are there objections to having the bill explained in lieu of having it read? If not, gentleman 12 to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This supplemental appropriation expires $50 million from the Mine Subsidence Insurance Fund to go to the Public Entity Insurance Trust Fund. These are both special revenue accounts administered by the Board of Risk and Insurance Management. That is the bill, Mr. Speaker. I urge passage.
The question before the House is, shall the bill pass? Is there debate on the bill? If not, those in favor of passage of the bill will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 91 ayes, 2 nays, and 7 members absent. A majority of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares the bill passed. The clerk will please report the title.
House Bill 3542, expiring funds to the Department of Administration, Board of Risk and Insurance Management, Public Entity Insurance Trust Fund.
Are there title amendments? If not, the title as read by the clerk will be and remain the title of the bill. Gentleman from the 96th.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill take effect from its passage.
The question is on the gentleman's motion that the bill take effect from passage. Those in favor of the motion will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will prepare the machine. Has every member voted? If so, the clerk will close the machine and ascertain the result on that question. There were 90 ayes, 2 nays, and 8 members absent. 2/3 of members having voted in the affirmative, the chair declares that bill effective from passage. The clerk will please communicate the action of the House to the Senate. Are there other bills on third reading? If not, gentleman from the 96th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move, subject to announcement, that the House recess until 3:30 p.m.
Are there announcements? Gentleman from the 96th.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Rules will meet at 3:15.
Gentleman, lady from the 49th.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Committee on Health and Human Resources will resume its meeting immediately following floor session, so please do not pass go or collect $200. Come directly to the committee room if you are a member. Thank you.
Are there other announcements? Okay, the question's on the motion. Those in favor of the House standing in recess will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. For what purpose does the gentleman from the 29th deal and seek recognition?
Yesterday, the Wayne County community tragically lost a young man in a house fire near Beach Fork Marina. I would ask the House to observe a moment of silence.
The chair will ask all members and guests in the galleries to please rise as the House observes a brief moment of silence in memory of this event. Thank you. Members and guests may be seated. So we're back on the motion now that the House stand in recess until 3:30. Those in favor of the motion will please say aye. Those opposed will please say no. The ayes have it. Chair declares the motion adopted. We're in recess until 3:30.